Welcome back. One final point before we go tonight. What the mainstream media was too afraid to tell you about the news this week. While the mainstream media spent the whole time making ridiculous claims that every policy Trump supports will cause people to die, here are the things that happened that really matter. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders ripped apart by liberal feminists. She was called a whore, a trollop, a harlot, a man, a bad mother, all because she works for a Republican president. And these vicious personal attacks on her appearance and her womanhood, they all came from liberal feminists who claim to champion women. But the mainstream media, we hear nada from them reporting on this rabid sexism coming from the left. The would-be suicide bomber from Times Square, his brother worshipped at the mosque where the infamous blind sheik used to preach his anti-American hatred. You know, like the blind sheik's failed 1992 plot to bomb the World Trade Center. This seems to me like pretty significant information associated with this radical Islamic terror attack in Times Square. But the mainstream media, they barely even mentioned it. Governor Jerry Brown of California claims the wildfires raging in Southern California are part of the new normal thanks to climate change. Basically, Governor Brown is saying if we don't chuck over more money to the radical environmentalist left, we're all going to burn. Only I checked data from NOAA, NASA, and the United Nations, and there is no scientific evidence that climate change causes wildfires. In fact, the data I found shows that wildfires have dropped by 15% since the 1950s. But that contradicts the liberal narrative, doesn't it? And since the mainstream media follows the liberal narrative, silence from them about Governor Brown's lies. Late-night TV host turned weepy political activist Jimmy Kimmel claims, quote, Obamacare is alive and well. Except, you know, for families like the writers in Florida who were told they had to pay $40,000 a year in health insurance premiums for the same plan they paid $26,000 for last year. The mainstream media didn't care, nor did they report that the writers were forced to choose a plan that covered less in order to afford it. And now the family is paying $29,000, $3,000 more for a plan that covers less. Last but not least, a 15-year-old pro-life girl was punched in the face outside a Planned Parenthood clinic in Virginia as she stood there praying. A pro-abortion activist charged up to her, grabbed her sign, and punched her in the face because she dares to be pro-life. Imagine if that violence had happened the other way around. If a pro-life activist punched a peaceful pro-choice protester, the media would have gone wild. The mainstream media doesn't care to report any of that to you, so we will. And that is my final point. You can reach me on Twitter at Liz_Wheeler. If you liked the show, please send me an email at oann.com/contact. In the meantime, catch us here tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, and until then, have a good night.